In a world where fishermen withhold information like prisoners in a commie camp, there are two hero dads bringing you tips and tricks directly from the pros to help you land bigger bass. This is the Bass Fishing Dads Podcast. Here are your hosts, Geno and Rich.
Rich, in this podcast, I thought it'd be a good idea for us to talk about all things bass fishing. We're just a couple of anglers, right? I don't consider myself a professional. What about you?
No, I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a total failure.
So I think the disclaimer should be here that we're just hobbyists. We enjoy fishing. We do it for fun. We got the names Bass Fishing Dads because of our children. We both have 5-year-old sons who have been friends since they've been 18 months old. We do this for fun. And the truth is that the reason we wanted to do this podcast is to uncover some information so we can catch bigger and more bass, right?
Bigger, better bass, the big heavy lunkers. This show is for the average weekend angler who fishes from banks, fishes from boats, to the pros that just want to connect with the community and stay with like-minded people. I mean, this ranges from everybody from your mom, your dad, your uncle, anyone who's out there fishing with their kids and making memories.
Look, and I thought about it when we came up with this name, Bass Fishing Dads. It was just appropriate. We're both fathers, and we have, like I mentioned, our 5-year-old sons that we take out fishing with us. But our listeners we're trying to connect with are also bass fishing dads, bass fishing moms, aunts, uncles. I just want to continue to incorporate those family values in fishing and spending time out on the water.
So people ask, why is it that we're doing this? And I can tell you that we're doing this because we're absolutely addicted to fishing, and we wanted an excuse to go out there more.
Well, they do say that if you want to solve any problem, you have to admit you have a problem first. So
I do have a problem, and I think the biggest problem is that I see people on social media pulling up giant fish, and I'm not one of them.
Yeah, and I think the bigger problem is, right, there's just so much information out there, and there's so many options. What do you do? Do you get the curly tail worm? Do you get the Senko worm? Do you get the wiggle worm, the ribbed worm? I mean, there's just so many options, with crankbaits, with colors, and just, it's just overwhelming.
We're going to answer all those questions in this podcast. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go out and talk to the pros, talk to the people who know, people who do this for a living, people who make these lures and baits, and we're going to find out when and where is the best time to use them.
And those are all great questions. I know that I have a lot of questions. I know that you do, Rich, also. And look, you as a listener, I'm sure that you have a lot of questions also. We want you to go over to our website at bassfishingdads.com and click on the button that says Ask Dads a Question, and submit your question to us. We'll read it on the air. Make sure that you leave us your name and where you're from. And we want to build a community around other people as well that are looking for the same information. That are trying to have fun with it, that are trying to learn more and catch bigger fish. I mean, really, that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, we're trying to make this a virtual bait shop, if you will. You know how when you show up at the bait shop and you see those old timers, they're sitting around talking and just shooting the breeze, drinking adult beverages.
And you're right. Those are those heavily guarded secrets that no one wants to share.
That's right. They're only sharing them amongst themselves.
Yeah. We
just want to have fun with it and try to bring a refreshing spin on how to go ahead and catch these fish.
It's an interesting point you bring up because, a lot of people buy their lures and things online these days. They don't really go into a tackle shop and buy their equipment anymore because it's, it could be expensive, but, it's a lot cheaper online. So I feel like that community is not like what it used to be.
That's true, and it really is so heavily guarded. So every time you try to find some information online, and I go online all the time, so I'm basically online all the time trying to find information about the waterways near my home and around here so we can try and go catch bigger fish at certain times, and it's hard to find information on what it is. People just don't talk about it. People take it to the grave with them.
Yeah, and look, we're really fortunate. We're from Miami, Florida. We have a lot of great lakes and a lot of, the Everglades and a lot of great places to fish out here. And, we're hoping to reach audiences all over the world. And the truth is, I would love to fish in other places and other states and other places where there's some great fisheries, and hopefully we bring on some guests that are from those areas and they can help us know where the locations are at.
We definitely got to start taking some trips out to Central Florida out in those lakes. I see pictures coming out of there, and they're a lot bigger than they are here.
And that's something we're definitely after, and I'll tell you something that, you can come along with us on this journey also. And we're hoping that, as we get into this, we'll be able to share our experiences and, those bigger fish that we're able to catch and, some of the good times that we have and just have some fun with this.
Definitely not going to keep the secrets from you. We're going to bring them live to you every time we experience something. So like that, what's going on. and hopefully that translates into you catching a bigger fish. I definitely want to get out there to some other cool spots, man. I see a lot of stuff going on out there, and people. I know your cousin, for example, is out in Texas. He catches some pretty big stuff out in some gnarly places.
You know, and I was talking about him. There's some people that fish from the banks that, you know, they're impressive. They can pull up some big fish, you know, just fishing from the banks. And, you know, there's times where I ride around in the car with fishing rods in my trunk, and I jump out and, you know, I'm in work clothes and I'm fishing these lakes, you know, hoping to pull out a lunker out of these lakes. And I've even been run off a couple times from being on private properties.
Yeah, I've had that luck a couple times too. But I can tell you what I don't have luck with is keeping my lures. I can't tell you how many times I've thrown something in a weed and got caught in a rock, and adios.
Which, look, that could just be a matter of tying the right knot, right?
There goes that $15 Rapala lure.
But look, you know, it's there's just so many different things. And, you know, I thought about this, and we talked about it on, you know, what kind of topics and what kind of subjects can we bring online. And you know, as we were going through this and planning for the show, I just came up with a lot of ideas, you know, and some of the ideas were just as basic as, you know, figuring out, you know, what's the right rod for the right job.
Down to the basics. Like I said, we go out there and there's people who've never bass fished in their lives that want to go out there and bass fish, and they want to take their kids bass fishing. They want to find a reason to connect with their kids. And this is the best way to start. So we're going to bring you all the information down to where to find rods, what rod, what reel, what lines, all the essentials to get you going.
You know, and I'll share this now because it was really important to me. The first time that my son ever pulled a fish out of the water, we were in the Everglades, and we were fishing with live worms, and we had, you know, lures, fake lures, plastics, and we were fishing for bass. And every time we'd hook up a worm on my son's rod and your son's rod, we turn around 2 seconds later to bend down to pick up the rod, and they had a fish on the line, and they were just going crazy, man. It was just an amazing time.
Yeah, they don't want to grab them, but they certainly want to touch them every single time.
Yeah, we were putting the baits on the hooks and taking the fish off. You know, we would have been a great crew captains on a charter boat. You know, it's funny. I thought about this the other day, and I was in Bass Pro Shop. I don't know if I shared this story with you, but, you know, just one of the things that confusing. And I was going to buy a rod because my rod had broke, and I was in the store and I looked around, and, you know, there's thousands of rods, right? And I know what are decent name brand rods, and, you know, figured certainly can go that route and pick one that I know. But, you know, I walked in the store, had a guy come up and ask me, hey, can I help you out? You know, anything you need help with? You know, it's funny. All of a sudden, my shoulders caught back and I act like I know what I was talking about. I'm like, no, I got this under control, you know. And it's funny, man. It seems like when someone asks you about these things, you know, it's like your ego goes up through the roof.
Right.
You know,
yeah, I got this, partner.
Yeah, I got this under control. Don't worry about me. You know. But, you know, after a little while, I did kind of come clean and said, yeah, you know, I'm looking for a rod to catch some bass. And
did your voice tune up a little bit?
Mine broke.
Like, yeah, well, listen, and since you asked.
Yeah, the voice got a little higher than normal, but, you know, the guy said, yeah, absolutely, I can help you out. And I said, well, you know, took me over to the rod section, and I'm looking around, and, I mean, I felt really lost, you know, in the store. And he picks this rod off the shelf and hands it to me, and he goes, put it right here. I said, put it right here? What do you mean, put it right here? He says, put it right here. And he grabs the tip of the rod and he puts it on his neck. You know, by this time I'm freaking out. I'm like, is this guy want me to, you know, I don't know what I'm doing with this rod, you know? And he starts talking and he goes, do you feel it? I'm like, do I feel it?
The Holy Spirit? What was he talking about?
I have no idea. He says, do you feel it? And he kept telling me, do I feel it? And I started to get really scared. I'm sweating in the store. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to go buy that rod. I don't even care if it was a 20-foot bamboo pole. I was just going to go buy it.
Yeah, I might have ran away right then.
I mean, I was going to, but I couldn't get past him in the aisle. He was a big old dude.
Oh, yeah.
So as he's talking, he says, do you feel the vibration? And I said, oh, I feel it. I feel it.
That's
and I started to get into it, you know, and I realized what had happened is that he was showing me the vibration and feeling all the little bumps and all of the, when you're fishing on the bottom and you can feel the texture of the bottom of the lake and where, you know, what's going on.
Are you talking about the rocks that I'm grabbing up against?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's the funniest thing, man. You know, so I know it seems so stupid, but it's funny to me. You know, I laugh at these experiences. I end up buying the rod. I don't even know if it was the right rod. I just felt like it was. I connected with the guy. It was just a funny situation. But, you know, those are the kind of questions. I mean, as stupid to me as they seem, I can't be the only one that doesn't know what kind of rod to use, when, and where. I mean, yeah, all rods will work for sure. But, you know, when you watch these YouTube videos...
No, not all rods work. We've learned that by experience 15 times. You walk into Bass Pro, there literally is 1,000 rods up there, and they're all tailored to something different.
Well, look, which brings me back to the point. The problem that we're trying to solve here is, you know what, I want to learn. I want to know what I'm going after. You know, the right tools for the right job is what I've always taught when I was growing up. You know, those are the kind of things that we're trying to figure out here. There's going to be just so many different options, and and we hope to have the audience engage with us, and and listeners. That's why I mentioned it's so important to ask your questions. I mean, we want to tailor this show what you want to know as well. I mean, it's really important to us because I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there just like us that are trying to learn and have fun and grow with the hobby and pass it down to their children.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I think when you get to spend some time with your kid and pass something along, that's one of the biggest things that they're going to remember forever. I know that every time that I went fishing with my dad, even the few times that I did, I remember forever and take it with me every single time. And every single one of those was an experience that I learned from. Yeah,
right. And I could still remember some of those fishing trips to this day. One of the things that I do remember is my uncle had a bass mounted on the wall. I mean, I was really young, and I remember looking up at that bass, and that thing looked like it was massive, And every time I would see that fish, I'd always think to myself, one day I'm going to catch that fish. And, I still haven't caught it yet. I know I will soon enough. But it's funny how those types of memories always stick with you.
You think he bought it at a yard sale or something?
I don't think so, because back then, I'll be honest with you, he used to make his own worms. He had the molds, and we're talking back in the late 70s, and I don't want to give away my age, but if you do the math, you figure it out. But anyway, he was pretty serious.
Let me tell you something. I didn't come from the same background. My background was all saltwater fishing, but I can tell you that if I had any fish mounted on the wall in my house, I wouldn't put it past my dad to have found it in a yard sale.
Right, yeah. Well, it's like those stories about people going out and fishing, right? And they stop by the supermarket to pick up fish on the way home. But listen, for future episodes, we'll look for us to bring on, manufacturers, people that are, just doing this for fun, and we plan to bring some value and to have fun along the way. So, I don't have anything else, Rich, in this episode. I wanted to put it out there, why we were doing this, who this podcast was for, what problem we're trying to solve here, and the value that we're trying to bring to our listeners. But that's pretty much all I have for this episode, Rich. What about you?
We're going to have a good time now. Everybody, please don't forget to join our Facebook group. We'll continue the conversations there. We'll have on our shows on our Facebook page. We'll post pictures of all our fishing trips. Hopefully you could put your pictures up there of your kids and your catches. And you could also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bass Fishing Dads.
I really appreciate everyone who's joined us in this episode today and taking the time to listen to us. We're happy to continue and build this community with you, and look forward to joining us on the next episodes. Tight lines and take your kids fishing.
Oh, hey man, how you doing? Wow, you made it through all the way to the end. That's awesome. I didn't think anyone even listened to the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around, we're going to have a few more coming up. Catch you next time.